Hello again, YouTube. All my fellow YouTube model builders and truck build-off competitors. Actually, we're not competitors. We're doing it for the fun, right? Hey, I'm here with another update. I got the suspension together on this behemoth. I had a lot of fun doing the parting lines and such on it. You can see where I had to touch up a few here. I got to get a little primer on. I had a few up here on the front that I'd left out. I got those fixed up, all good to go. Got the mold lines out of my springs and stuff. Got all my suspension parts done on front and the back. I checked the alignment on everything. I measured out the distances between the axles, keep them square, and the distance between the front axle and the steer axle. And I come out with, I'm just a little over 64th of an inch as being out. I can live with a 64th of an inch. Nobody's ever going to see it, and you wouldn't know about it if I hadn't told you about it. But that's where I stand on that. That's my progress so far. But I got a bunch of parts here on the bench that I'm going to start working on in the next, do a bunch of the next sub-assemblies, like this radiator. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a pretty hefty mold line in that, and you can hear when I flip my nail over it. It's a big one. But they all got to come off, and then there's a top tank that goes on it. It doesn't fit worth a doggone at this point. It rocks. It's got to be fitted. So I'm going to be working on that. I've got the air tanks. I've glued them together, but they need the parting lines removed and sanded or filed or whatever. Some of the exhaust pipes underneath, this one is really ill-fitting. It's going to need a good fitting job here on these seams. They're pretty tough. The main problem I have with the exhaust so far is the two-piece that comes down from the turbocharger to the mufflers. That is, it's almost football-shaped instead of being round. So I have to take and round them back off with the parting line. You can see how it doesn't want to fit together there very good. And sink marks, golly, I've never seen sink marks that deep in quite a while. Well, since I did the oil pan on the engine. But yeah, I got some sink marks and lines I got to take care of there. The air intake tube is also very ill-fitting. It doesn't want to fit together. It's going to take quite a bit of fitting and a lot of sanding on the parting lines. The rear plate for the mount fifth wheel, not a lot of flash on it, but on the underside, it's just not finished very well. It just, it's got ejector pin marks. It's got just a rough surface on it from where they built the mold. They didn't do it very smooth. And if you don't pick the truck up, you probably wouldn't see it. But if anybody ever picked a truck up, that'd stick out, especially once you get some paint on it. So I have to sand all that smooth and get that ready to go. Now there's a deck plate that goes on just in front of that plate that holds the fifth wheel. And look at the ejector pin marks I got on here. Those are some of the biggest ones I ever saw. I don't know if you can see those or not. I'll hold them up here as close as I can. But those are going to go. They got to go. I can't deal with those. On the drive shafts, they are not round by any stretch of the imagination. There's a mold line runs right down the length of both of them. Luckily, it's a two-piece U-joint, so I don't have to do it all in one great big stick. I can do it in two halves. The rear shocks are the only part of the suspension I haven't got on, only because I got putting it together, and they're the last parts to go on. I need to get the mold lines off all four of those, and they're ready to go. I've got the small parts for the engine, the turbocharger, the fan belts, and the compressor. Those are all going to need their mold lines removed. There's a pretty big one on the back of this turbocharger. Probably wouldn't see it where it mounts underneath the hood, but I know it's there, so it's got to go. The fan belts are actually not too bad. There's a little edge around them, but they're still going to get a little attention. The air compressor, on the other hand, has a big mold line in it. And it would be right where you looked at when you opened the hood. This is the other fan belt. There's not much to do on that. The fan shroud for the radiator has got some rough mold line around the edge. That all needs to be knocked off. I've also since got the engine pretty well assembled. I've went through and primered it so I could find out what mold lines I still needed to hit. And I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up or not, but there were a couple sink marks in the oil pan on the bottom. I sanded the primer off and puttied them full. They need a touch of primer. I always like to primer it so I can see the flaws in it better after, and then I know what I got to fix. There was a big mold line came down the center of this oil pan and across here and down this transmission, and you can see I already got rid of all of that. There's a few other parts that go on this, the turbocharger of course, and on this side the water separator and distributor go on. The water distributor distributes water to the heater and whatnot. That's all got to be filed down and put on. And then I got some other parts out here for the chrome removal. Man, talk about some chrome. That is some in-your-face chrome on those fuel tanks. But there's a pretty nasty line that goes across the top of those. So I'm going to strip these before I assemble them. And then I'll file that line out. And of course I'll do an update and show you that. Both tanks are pretty much the same. And the steps, oh my God, talk about some more in-your-face chrome. Well, I remember when I got my truck, I picked it up at the dealership with under 400 miles on it. It was brand new. All the aluminum was shining and the tanks were shining, but nothing like this. So this chrome's got to go. And I'm either going to do it with alclad chrome, which isn't as bright, or I'm going to use alclad aluminum on them. But I got the parts for the toolboxes and the gas tank mounts and such. They all have quite a bit of flash on. I don't know if the camera will pick that up. But I'll attend to all of that, and I'll be busy for the next week, 10 days, probably before I get another update up. Once I get all these parts taken care of, I'm doing all these sub-assemblies ahead of time so I can get a good build going, a good build time. But the air cleaners, they've got the big mold line in them, as you can see there. That's all got to come off. Now, these are supposed to be painted body color, and then there's supposed to be 2 aluminum straps on it. I think I'm going to go that way with it and paint these the red, the same color I'm going to do the body. And then maybe I'll mask it off and I'll put some alclad strips around it. That sounds pretty good. Either that, maybe I'll use some bare metal foil. I'm not sure yet. Probably the alclad though. Anyway, that's about all I got for today, guys. Just wanted to let you know what I was doing, how my progress was coming. I've been watching videos. Other guys are doing great on their trucks too. I'm glad to see those. Alright, we'll see you in a few days when I get some of this all finished. Alright guys, good luck, have fun.